Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to Carmine's Arena, a cultural gourmet of information, if you will, a feast for your mind and soul. And now, without further delay, the man, the myth, the maestro, Carmine Arena.
Greetings and welcome once again to Carmine's Arena, site of contest and conflict, venue for and of resolution. Resolution in terms of focus, remedy, and commitment, both yours and mine, to the preservation, the propagation, and indeed the celebration of Western civilization. Those among you who may imagine that President Obama is a failure are viewing his calamities from the wrong, headstrong end of the telescope. That is to say, his livelong end. Viewed from the corrected perspective, brings up close, painfully close, an Obama-rama of achievements mindfully meant to morph by rhetorical mutations into the ding-dong emasculation and capitulation of America. Thus his end of said scope has made each American the other's misanthrope, hopes, dopes. He ultimately gave himself away by breaking from his campaign promise of administrative transparency and began hosting the ruling of the country by executive fiat and acrobatic chit-chat, leapfrogging over imagined American backloggings. Small wonder leftists committed to the sinister left habitually prevaricate with impunity. Any change in their promises is not to be considered flip-flopping. Oh, no. It is to be considered evolving. Such be the consistent context of their cunning pretext. After a while, the mountain of prevarication becomes a dump site of downright lies, and truth itself becomes its very own debris. Executive administration carried forth by obfuscation and alienation. Alienation, I repeat, of one American from another and yet another American, till we become those great big separate bunches of ethno-hyphenated scrunches. Abraham Lincoln observed that this nation could only be destroyed from within. A house divided cannot stand. Many such houses generate a what? Why, of course, they generate and guarantee a ghetto, each politically ruled by empty yet well-chosen seductions from the proto-politicians gone ghetto blotto. From the very beginning to the present period of Barack Hussein Obama's concatenation of deceptions, his fate shall be one day sealed by, of course, the historic record, but more importantly, it will be revealed to have been that syndrome endemic to the left, and that is its quirky, irksome, blundering outcomes. For to deceive others is as easy as child's play. When it becomes one's habit, it promotes, arrested development unto self-deception. No hits, no runs, only error. But what an opportunity lost to an African-American president, coached by the likes of Jeremy Wright, the unrepentant, militant Bill Ayers, and the radicals' patron taint of what ain't, Saul Alinsky. Not to mention the utterly dysfunctional parents Obama never surpassed of their leftist underhand brand, but given over to his grandma's care, alas. May their tribe cease to increase so that others of African American heritage, much better suited, may be allowed to extract the wedges hammered between and among fellow Americans. Those ready to hold to their oath of office defending the Constitution and the rule of bicameral enacted laws, and to dust off and refurbish the pillars of American exceptionalism unabashedly, instead of apologetically, as did and still does our president, who says sarcastically that everyone thinks he's exceptional. Yet it is to America the world continues to come, not Cuba, Castro's prison island inferno, not to Russia, filled with old-time apocrypha and worn-out dogma, not to North Korea, ruled by the same old snakes from a coiffed Medea, nor to any other leftist-pitched ditch. No, it is to America they flock, legally and, of course, illegally. Though undocumented, demented, locked in hock to smugglers, those Obama irregulars, Mexico's own laughingstock. Yes, I repeat, it is to America the world continues to flock, to lay claim to the American dream, a dream the Obama cohorts would turn into a nightmare. His cadres would turn into a timeshare. Fortunately, our president and surrogate abettors are ultimately frustrated by one overriding truth. The United States of America is hardwired to and for success. Against us, now or in the future, all enemies become cotton candy spun to disappear, though they be ISIS, alchemist, or jihadist. Allow me to remind one and all of my viewers, remind you of the deathless words of Francis Scott Key. Oh, thus be it ever, when free men can stand between their loved homes and the war's desolation. Blessed with victory and peace, may the heaven-rescued land praise the power that hath made and preserved us a nation. Then conquer we must, when our cause it is just, and this be our motto, in God is our trust. And the star-spangled banner in triumph shall wave o'er the land of the free and the home of the brave. Nothing in those words, right up to the present, rings untrue. Despite American haters, race baiters, and hard-boiled, homegrown, commie-zombie traitors. From King George III to King Obama, the left's very own mockingbird, America in thought and deed shall prevail to eternally succeed. Such are we hardwired, hardwired indeed. Allow me to express and demonstrate our singularity. And forgive me if I gloat, for few instances in history, ancient or modern, records a power that won an unconditional surrender from its enemy, such as was our victory over Nazi Germany and Imperial Japan, and immediately thereafter, treated both with a quality of deep humanitarian sensibility, despite their sorry wartime routines of institutionalized cruelty and unmitigated barbarity. Our sense of ourselves and unduplicated sensibility as a victorious nation nonetheless turned Germany and Japan into industrial competitors. Why, Krupp Industries, one of the world's great steelmakers and one-time arms manufacturer, survives to this day as a leading global manufacturer of steel construction materials, automotive parts and assemblies, and mechanical services. Volkswagen, which churned out Hitler's Beetles at his behest, used slave labor. Similarly, Bayer's, a pharmaceutical giant, made Zyklon 8 gas, utilized to exterminate Jews in gas chambers disguised to look like a shower facility. Bayer's still thrives. BMW, Bavarian Motorworks, used 30,000 forced laborers during the war. In short, slave labor and slave labor camps producing engines for aircraft, motorcycles, and other war machinery. I could go on listing German wartime industrial entities which survive with vigor thanks to our American exceptionalism, but let us for a spell now visit our competitor, Japan. We've all heard of Mitsubishi. They used to make warplanes, the so-called Japanese Zero fighters. Think of Nissan, founded in 1934 and still with us. Well, I believe you get the message, don't you? But Japan didn't only use slave labor, but enslaved American GI prisoners of war. Perhaps people of Al Sharpton's political ilk might pause to recognize that attempting to relive the past and stubbornly replicating it would have brought us all to a standstill, resembling frozen time in inner-city ghettos, with the gang mentalities of quasi-Nazis and emperor worshippers being their worn-out narrative. Man at his best is indeed a marvel. At his worst, an oppressive, subversive monster. Devotion to reason and not hoodlum-hoodied demonstrations is the obvious solution. Anarchy shall always sound out of key, particularly Francis Scott's key. Like most race baiters and left-wing American haters, the politically bipolar disordered dog pack are always ready to offer us a new leash. That is to say, a new leash on life, which keeps us to heel whilst they wheel and deal for power, prominence, pose, and pelf. What other country in the world would allow Sharpton clowns and churls to rebound and be rewarded for roundly accusing those who are later absolved and shown to have been innocent when the truth was unfurled? Not only is Al, the ghetto's pal, given a paying TV program and platform, but is embraced as an advisor to the president, who wants to steadily raise taxes while Sharpton cheats on his taxes. The rest of us racists routinely pay to the penny. Watch carefully when Al Sharpton will nonetheless be absolved of tax evasion, or better still, granted a pardon. Should you doubt this, consider carefully how thoroughly he's been absolved of his nefarious defense of Tawana Brawley, though he lost a defamation suit and had to pay a judgment of $345,000, satisfied not by Sharpton, but Johnny Cochran, his lawyer, among many others. The entire scandal is replete with false facts, fancies, and legal phonies, whose echoes go on serving, even today, as a template to arouse mobs to hoot, loot, and scoop up goodies in the name of justice. Oh yes, and tax adjustments. Can you imagine this amateur theater being tolerated in North Korea, China, Cuba, nor most countries in the Middle East? No. But it's rewarded here in the land to which people the world over continue to flock, coming on rickety vessels and bobbing rafts, and associating with crafty smugglers who've left them to starve, dehydrate, and alone on their own to migrate or stagnate. Yet, yet America appears to have been worth their effort. One thing amusingly endearing about Sharpton and like automatons is their predictability. Wouldn't it be truly riotous, this comes off the top of my head, knowing which side their bread is buttered on, that Sharpton and teammates were found one day to have been all the while closet Republicans, earning a buck. Oh, well. But Judas, after all, wasn't a Republican, but a nascent liberal with a very deep sense of entitlement. Yet, of course, the Reverend Al is no Jesus. He's just happy to speak for him. Now, let's leave Al to his rascals and upheavals. American exceptionalism is best reflected ever and ever again in humanitarian uniqueness via our charity, both personal and worldwide. There is no other country that matches us in giving and assisting under circumstances ranging over famines, earthquakes, tsunamis, and epidemics. While American haters condescend to reprehend, we from collective hearts spend on humanity. Its dividend. 'Tis and is our legend, all the world comprehends. Another incarnation of America's matchless charitable disposition is evidenced by our foreign aid. In 2012, for example, we turned over nearly $400 billion to client states and not so client, if you get my drift. In 2008, when he was president, George W. Bush had given more money to Africa than any other U.S. president. Putting them all together, surpassed them all. Under this watch, millions of lives have been saved by one country addressing disease in another country. Thus, Bush 43 has been lavishly praised by the likes of a trio of Obama, Clinton, and Carter for increasing aid to the African continent by a whopping 640%. Yet, American haters call us racists, with George W. leading the lily-white pack. Sometimes our charity comes back to bite us, as exemplified by our war on poverty, begun by LBJ. Johnson wanted to pull the people up and out of poverty and get them on their feet to thereafter help themselves and perhaps others. 50 years have elapsed, 50, with the expenditure of a sum impossible to wrap one's brain around. That stupendous amount is over $22 trillion. Yes, trillion, which equals the number 1 followed by 12 zeros. Why, if one spent $1 million a day since Jesus was born, $1 trillion would not be depleted. LBJ's effort was a failure, leaving the same amount of poverty, if not worse, these 50 years later, as I've said, along with a marriage penalty which inspired single motherhood, deadbeat disappearing dads, and damaged children, damaged and gang managed. Their answer to this calamity, you guessed it, more money, more money. Can't you hear the shrill drill? A leftist mantra that has reduced every socialist state into penury, whose prelude was regret, such as the regret and second thoughts we hear coming from Sweden today, and yes, Cuba. There'll be others, mark me. America's willingness towards charity all too sadly leads to the absurdity of fraternity, in the form of press 1 for English. Why, if you dream and often struggle to come to our shores, is it necessary to look to bilingual courtesies when the English language is spoken by staggering numbers and is the language du jour of heads of state and children selling trinkets to tourists the world over? What was meant to be an educational tool, bilingual education has become an educational enclave. Never meant to be anything but a temporary stopgap measure. It often becomes the avenue for foreign-born students to remain in place from elementary school through to high school. Though there is evidence aplenty of children quickly picking up the English language if mixed into the general population, school population, picking it up idiomatically and grammatically. One Chinese boy I came to know personally wasn't even able to say hello in English when he first arrived at school. Unbelievably, within a year and a half, moving from the 9th to 12th grades in rapid promotions, he graduated with honors and was made valedictorian, delivering his commencement address with gratitude to America, and performing this feat flawlessly and without a trace of a foreign accent. In short, my dear listeners, we needn't dumb down our children, otherwise granting them leeway to natural indolence, approved by fools who keep fixing what ain't broke. When youth is wisely admonished, it can achieve much that shall astonish, developing a sense of occasion and pride in obedience, that being the quality of pride that enables youth to know where they are and sense where one day they want to be. Wish fulfillment requires planning. Brought up by parents when it is that they are parented at all, youth is all too often more coddled than quietly loved. Our nation's exceptionalism ultimately rests on the continued grace and refinement of proper nurture. The visionary rearing of youth requires the accretion of fond memories. These promptings of thought lend unfolding culture the traditions which keep it a recognizable whole, a whole fueled by wisdom. These are profound issues which our short time together shall always frustrate. Thus, our perspective must mandate that we not fiddle with the telescope, as do America's apologists, who wish to view the world from both ends of their scope, depending upon the fancy of their current grope. Current grope. Recently, border-straddling Talibans, deformed of mind, heart, and spirit, emptied of the tiniest modicum of human and of the human and of humanity in general, slaughtered, are you listening? Slaughtered 126 school children. I am mystified too by the silence, the utter contemptible silence. We were routinely informed by the left and advised by the left that our presence in the Middle East serves as a recruitment tool, and so we should depart forthwith. Talk about the wrong end of the telescope. May I politely ask of these far-sighted folk, don't you think that the execution of innocence is evermore a recruitment tool against these Calibans? Should it not inspire multitudes who have children, or one day wish to have offspring, to commit themselves to the permanent erasure of this vexing viciousness. I, each day, while unfolding my newspaper, am appalled at our insensibility and insensitivity, the most outrageous acts of dehumanization. Mr. President, turn the damn collapsible scope around and, dare I say, turn it to see right before there's nothing left of even the left. Till next time, my friends, keep the faith and stop the theft.
If you have any comments or other remarks, and that I perhaps could even read on some of these broadcasts, please do not hesitate to write to me, Carmine Arena, P.O. Box 1029, Larchmont, New York 10538.